I want to be just like that guy. Capable of soloing levels and not needing to rely on teammates. But it's just so difficult to pull off. I don't even know where to begin with most of the stages.
That sounds like a job for me.
Wait, who said that? Where are you?
I'm you, from the future.
The future? Wait, where are you? Are you in my head right now?
That's not important right now. What is important though is that I come with knowledge to help you and others get better at understanding how to solo levels and become more skilled in GTFO.
Really? Oh dude, that'd be awesome.
Yes, I know I am. So you, past self, and those watching, kick back and relax, and I'll teach you some tricks to help you get a better understanding of how to solo GTFO.
Wait, what do you mean by those watching? Are there other—
Cue the intro!
Intro? What? Dude, what the heck? Hello everybody, my name's Professor Scalar and today I'll be teaching you some tricks to help you solo levels in GTFO. Despite this game clearly being designed around 4 players and not just one, there are many nutcases, like myself, and the community who love tormenting themselves by trying to beat the game all by themselves. However, playing solo requires a whole new set of skills and playstyle than playing with a full group. Most of the things I'll be covering today are going to be general tips and tricks that could apply to most levels throughout this rundown and future ones, and not so much specific things that would only apply to the rundown 3 levels. Starting off though, let's talk about you first. Not your character you, I mean you who's sitting down right now and watching this video. Like I said earlier, you're going to need to be skilled in certain aspects before you even contemplate trying to solo levels. First off, be familiar with the level. Don't go into a level that you haven't beaten that much or you haven't completely explored and then expect to be able to solo it. You should be able to make a mental map of the entire level where you can tell where each zone connects to each other, where some shortcuts or good routes could be, which doors are alarm doors, blood doors, anything like that. If a level is going to have key items you need, like fog turbines or power cells or anything like that, you need to know where they could potentially spawn. You need to be able to tell which rooms will probably have scouts and what you need to be careful of. You pretty much have to make a game plan before you even step foot into the level. That way you know what you're going to be doing as you go in. Don't just work on the fly and say I'll figure it out as I go, because that is not going to work out well for you. Second, you need to be able to plan ahead and work on the fly. You may have a plan going into the level, but things are going to change depending on what the game throws at you. You don't know where resources are going to spawn. You don't know how many enemies there are going to be or where the scouts are going to be. You could have a run where there's only 1 scout in a zone, and then you can have runs where there's 3 scouts, and that can definitely change things up. So be able to adapt and look at what you have and make a plan for the future. Also, have backup plans in case things go wrong, because as we all know, they will go wrong. You're going to set off enemies by accident, you may set off a scout or just a room with 10 enemies. Anything could go wrong at any stage and you need to have a plan to fall back on, that way you're not running around like a chicken with its head cut off, freaking out, wondering how the heck you're about to survive 30 enemies who are coming after you while you're low on ammunition. So be able to adapt and not lose your head when things go wrong. Third, be skilled with the weapons and the tool that you're going to take in. I'll talk more about the loadout a little bit later, but for the most part, you can take almost any 2 weapons you want into the levels and still solo them. Obviously, that's not completely true with the special weapon, but your primary you probably could get away with almost any of them. The big thing though is make sure you're skilled with it. If you want to take the pistol and the revolver, 2 weapons that are very good if you can land headshots but suck if you can't land those headshots, might not be the best option if you're not confident in being able to shoot the heads off of 50 enemies when they come after you. Same thing with the tool. if you decide to take the sentries or the mine deployer, make sure you know exactly how to use them for maximum efficiency. You don't want to be wasting a mine on a single enemy because you put it in a bad position, or you don't want a turret to be completely wasted during an alarm door because you put it at the wrong location and now it's not going to help you whatsoever. So make sure you're comfortable with the weapons you're taking in and you know how to maximize their efficiency. Fourth, be familiar with enemy AI. Understand how they work both asleep and active. If they're active, how are they going to come after you? Are they going to charge you? Are they going to keep their distance? How are they going to attack you, or what their attack animations are? That way you know what's coming in advance before it hits you. Or if they're asleep, understand what you can and can't get away with when it comes to killing them silently. The last thing you want to do is think two enemies are far away enough from each other that you can get away with it. You go for the kill, and then you see that other enemy glow red, and then everything else in the room starts to glow red. Be familiar with how the enemy works, that way you know best how to deal with them and how not to get yourself killed and waste resources. Fifth, know how to kite enemies and stay mobile. You cannot just simply hold down the fort like you do with 4 people. Once you run out of ammunition in the chamber of both your guns, you either reload and keep on shooting if they're far away enough, or you have to run and get some distance so you can reload and turn around and start shooting without getting hit. Often, this is going to require you to run through enemies, so you're going to have to jump or slide a lot to be able to make sure you don't get hit as much, or you're going to need to take shortcuts through the maps like jumping over railings or little ledges, jumping up boxes to get over a wall, anything like that, which will make it so enemies can't directly follow you and they have to take a longer route to get to you. This is also why you should be familiar with the levels so you know how to do stuff like this when the need arises. And finally, there is luck. Yeah, I'm adding luck to this list of skills you need. I'm not saying you need to get lucky in order to solo attempt a level, but luck is what's going to dictate whether your run is going to be very, very difficult or absolutely brutally difficult. If you get very unlucky, you could have some runs where all the enemies are in groups of 4 or more, so it's practically impossible to stealth any of the rooms. You could have runs where you're given pretty much no seafoam grenades or deployable mines, and all you get are glow sticks and lock melters. Or you could get runs where almost every single zone has the maximum amount of scouts that could possibly spawn in them. You could get pretty unlucky in quite a few ways. Or with alarm doors and where enemies spawn, might get unlucky there. The inverse though is you could also get lucky. Maybe you'll have runs where you get 4 or 5 seafoam grenades, or pretty much every single room the enemies are all small dudes and they're all 1 or 2 next to each other so you can stealth the entire thing. Alarm doors, enemies spawn in just the perfect areas where you want them to spawn. Or you get only maybe 1 or 2 scouts throughout the entire level. There's many different random factors when you have to go through levels solo, and luck can dictate whether or not a run is going to be easier or more difficult than you hoped it to be. But luck at the end of the day is not going to be what ultimately decides whether you beat a run or not. That is purely up to skill and skill alone. Now that we're done talking about you as an individual, let's talk about you as the player, specifically your loadout. When it comes to your 2 weapons, you're going to want to use things that are ammo efficient and that you are skilled with. Don't be using weapons just because other solo players took it themselves and were able to win the level with them. Especially stuff like the pierce weapons. The pierce weapons can be very good if you know how to line up enemies and get them down to choke points so you can just plow through them. But if you don't know how to do stuff like that, pierce weapons are not going to be the best option for you. Stuff like the Hell Rifle or the Sniper Rifle, they can be useful if you're going to deal with a bunch of big dudes, but because they're so ammo inefficient, you're going to be running low a lot and have to rely pretty much purely on your primary weapon to kill all the small fry. Same thing with the tool as well. Most of the time, the mine deployer is going to be your best friend when you try to solo a level, just because you can barricade multiple areas on alarm doors or spread them out quite nicely. Also, If you do hit 100% and you have tool refills, you could place mines down in an area you know enemies are going to travel through later, and then refill yourself up. Or just simply place them down and then come back later and pick them up when you need them again. You can't exactly do that with turrets and C-foam. At the same time though, sometimes turrets, C-foam, and even the bio-tracker might be better to take than the mine deployer. It really depends on the level layout though and what type of enemies you're going to face. When it comes to dealing with enemies by yourself, you're going to have to be very careful. If you screw up, everything's going to come after you, which means it's going to be much easier to get swarmed and overrun and killed, or just take a ton of damage and waste resources by missing shots. When you're going in through quietly, kill the isolated enemies first. Try to get rid of the ones that have nothing near them, that way there's no risk of any other enemy waking up. Once all of them are cleared out, start killing the groups of 2 or 3. Take advantage of stuff like hitting them both with the melee swing at the same time if they're close enough, standing in between them if you can, or using the one-tap hit to the back of the head to do it as well. It's a very beautiful trick to use if there's 3 enemies all crouched on the ground right next to you. That way you could just simply tap 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 and get them all killed. Just make sure they're actually dead before you decide to try kill more enemies. Also, if you need to, just shove an enemy away. It sounds stupid, but if you've killed a few enemies in the room and you set off one, but you can shove it out the door and into the next room where there are no enemies, do that. It's much better to do it than have it wake everything else up by screaming. Of course, if you need to go loud, don't be afraid to, because at times you just can't stealth through these levels. Kill the enemies you can get silently with the hammer first, then position yourself in a way where you can shoot and kill enemies, but also fall back to safety in case you get swarmed by them. Don't position yourself in a corner where it's basically a last man stand, because trust me, you're not going to win that half the time. Also, be careful of the scouts. Chances are, if you like killing scouts with guns, you probably take stuff like the rifle or the hell rifle. However, if you're doing solo missions, you're probably not taking those because they're so ammo inefficient. If you're taking something like a shotgun or a revolver, yes, you can one-tap a scout, but you're going to have to get quite a bit closer, and sometimes you just can't do that due to enemy positioning. Look at the situation and gauge best how to do it, because there is almost always going to be a good way to get through it where you can almost stealth everything, or at least guarantee the scout dies. Because worst case scenario, you set off that scout, and you have to waste a ton of resources killing it, the room it woke up, and the wave that's spawning in behind you. Speaking of resources, let's talk about resource management. The first thing you may think when you get into a level is, yippee! Everything is for me. And that's true. Everything is for you. However, you don't want to go wasting stuff or picking up things willy-nilly. For one, you may think you're going to have a ton of ammo, so you could probably just go loud a lot because all the ammo packs are for you. But the thing you have to keep in mind is instead of having 4 people on your team shooting enemies, there's only 1 of you. So even though all that ammo refill is for you, you are going to effectively spend 4 times the amount of ammo trying to kill enemies with your guns because you don't have teammates to back you up. So in the long run, you really aren't doing too much better with ammo unless if you know what you're doing. Medkits can sort of be the same thing. Every enemy is going to focus on you, so if you're getting hit, or if anybody is going to get hit, it's obviously going to be you. So your HP is going to go down much faster because more of the enemies are going to come straight for you. And same thing with tools. If you have a turret, your turret's the only one killing enemies. You don't have another 2 turrets killing them as well, so your turret's going to blow through ammo like crazy. So make sure you're not splurging your resources. But at the same time, don't be too stingy with them. What I mean by this is don't be afraid to pick them up and use them if need be. Don't say, normally I would place down 6 mines for this alarm door, but I don't want to waste them because I might need them later. I'm only going to place down 2. This is why you need to understand approximately how many resources you're going to get. If you need to, query the resources on a terminal when you start off the level so you know how many uses of everything you'll get throughout the entire thing. That way you can better plan ahead for how many resources you want to use at certain stages of the level. Another key thing though is position your resources in good areas. If there's a resource box right next to your extraction scan and there's a 2-use ammo pack in it, don't pick it up. Wait until later when you find maybe a 4 or 5-use ammo pack or med pack or tool refill and go back and place it in there and exchange them. Once you pick up a resource from a locker, you can't put another one back into it, but if you pick one up while you're already holding one, it swaps them. So you could put a 5-use ammo pack or med pack right next to spawn point, which could be very useful when you're trying to hold out on the extraction scan. Same thing with boxes that are near areas you know you're going to run through if you have to kite enemies back to the beginning of the level or through random rooms to buy yourself more time on the alarm doors. Keep those resources there and replace them with ones that are going to be super good. That way when you're running past, you can pick it up as you're going without stopping and then use it and refill yourself up. The same even applies to stuff like seafoam grenades, glow sticks, and the other ones. If you have a box with glow sticks right next to a door you would like to seafoam for an alarm, and you find a seafoam grenade somewhere else, pick up the seafoam grenade, put it in that box with the glow sticks, and that way when you go through the other zones and before you come back there, if you find another seafoam grenade, you can pick that one up. Don't always carry something on you because it's the thing you want the most. If you can position them into an area where it'll be when you need it, do that instead, because that opens up the opportunity to carry something else on you that might be way off the path in an area that you're definitely not going to be coming back to at any point. Now let's start talking about some of the things that actually make soloing levels much more difficult. The first one being carrying key items. In some levels, you're going to have to carry things like fog turbines, power cells, or anything else. And sometimes you have to carry multiple of them, or you have to carry them while enemies are chasing after you, and that can get pretty problematic. Let's use R3B2 as an example. You need to carry a fog turbine, the neonate, and a power cell through a zone that is completely covered in infectious fog. You could just pick up that power cell and just walk through it and max your infection out because hey, you have the resources to fully heal yourself up, but that's sort of a waste of resources if you think about it. What you can do is juggle items, especially if it's the fog turbines. Pick up the fog turbine, have it charge up fully, walk forward a bit until you're almost at the edge of the range of the item you just left behind, drop the fog turbine, go back, pick it up the other item, take it to the opposite edge of the fog turbine range, and then pick up the fog turbine before it shuts off completely. It's slow and monotonous, but at the same time, it's much better than wasting a ton of HP and disinfectant packs by just charging headfirst through. This also applies for if you have to kill enemies in infectious zones and all you have is a fog turbine on you and no repellers. Walk up to the enemy, place down the turbine and kill the enemy with melee, and then immediately pick it back up before the fog starts to zoom in on you. Also, don't be afraid to drop them if need be. If you do end up setting off an enemy in a giant room that's covered in fog, don't try to walk with that fog turbine out of that zone. You're going to lose a lot more HP getting hit on the way out than if you were to just drop it, run, get into a better position, and then tank the infection on the way back in to re-pick it up again. The big thing though is when you're trying to extract with items. Some of the levels you have to pick up the neonate and then leave with that neonate in your arms, or at least you have to carry it back to the extraction scan. Meanwhile, enemies are spawning throughout the entire level, coming straight after you. In situations like this, be patient and listen for enemy spawn locations. Obviously, at the beginning of all this, enemies are going to be spawning in front of you, so walk forward a bit, but don't position yourself in a way where you're going to walk around a corner and then see 10 enemies right there in front of you and you're still holding said item. Instead, make sure you can tell when enemies are getting close. That way you can drop the item and pull out your guns and get ready to shoot them before you pick it back up and keep on going. Or, if enemies spawn behind you, then keep walking but walk backwards. Pay attention to behind you so as soon as you do see the enemies approaching, you can drop the item and start shooting at them. This is one of the more difficult parts of stages where you have to do stuff like this, so you're going to have to take this slow. Make sure you're not too aggressive. And then there are the alarm doors. Not blood doors or arrow doors because they're not too much different, but alarm doors are probably the most difficult part about soloing levels. because every alarm you have to do is effectively 4 times longer. Were there 3 waves of scans on that door? Well, now there's 12. Were there 5? Now you have to deal with 20. You're not actually dealing with that many more, but every time there's 4 red circles or 1 or 2 big red circles, it's going to take you much longer to finish them because you don't have teammates who are also standing on them. The reason why this gets so difficult is because not only do you have to spend more time actually finishing the scans, but enemies are going to be coming at you and will probably get into the room much faster because you won't be able to effectively see foam and mine and place turrets every single time, and only you are going to be there to shoot them and kill them when they do get in. This is where you have to be very strategic and creative to deal with stuff like this. If you're using mines, you may want to place a bunch of mines before the door to hopefully kill the entire first wave before they get there to buy you extra time. Or if you're using seafoam and the scans are in a position where you can reach the door, keep on seafoaming the door over and over again. But even then, this is not a foolproof plan, and a lot of the time it's not going to do you much good. The thing about it with these alarm doors is this is where you want to use your tools and consumables as much as you can. I mentioned earlier you don't want to be stingy with your resources. These are the areas you don't want to be stingy. Do not decide to place down 2 or 3 mines instead of 6 or 7 because you figure you can get away with it. Or don't hold on to triple seafoam grenades because you want to save it for later. Unless if you know you can make it without using those resources. But until you get more experience at soloing, I wouldn't recommend that. The other thing too is finishing your scans is not top priority. Surviving is. Do not just stand there and tank enemies and try to kill them while they're at your feet, thinking as soon as I get the door unlocked, everything's okay. Yes, more and more enemies will spawn in, but there is an enemy cap. You won't eventually get hundreds of enemies coming after you because you're not doing the scans. So focus on staying alive and killing the enemies rather than trying to brute force finish the scans because you will just get killed. But the most important thing when it comes to dealing with the alarm doors, and probably the most important thing total when it comes to soloing levels, is kiting enemies throughout the stages. Kiting enemies is going to be the biggest skill you need for soloing levels, and this is the thing that makes the difference between people who can and can't solo. The thing about Rundown 3 is it's a bit more difficult to kite enemies because they are faster and they don't deal more damage, but they attack faster. However, it's not impossible in Rundown 3. It's still doable. If you have cleared rooms of previous zones, don't be afraid to run back into them and bait enemies through them. For example, if you have an alarm door that you're doing and you finish half of the scans but you're getting swarmed by enemies, run back to the beginning where there's a bunch of intact doors because they haven't been broken yet, and use those to your advantage. Run through, kite them to one back end of the level, wait for them to all get there, and then run as fast as you can back to the alarm door, shutting the doors behind you and buying yourself time while enemies break them down. Don't stay in one location. A lot of people have the mindset of holding their ground and staying in the same zone. As long as it's not infectious fog or things you have to worry about while you're running back through the previous zones, you're free to do it. Move around. That alarm door is going to probably take quite a while, and you may get 1, 2, 3, or even 4 extra waves of enemies because you're not doing it super quickly. But like I said, there is an enemy cap, so you're not going to get hundreds of enemies coming after you at once. And it's much better to survive and then deal with more enemies than basically kill yourself trying to stand on a scan. This is also why you should position resources in areas where you know where they are so you can pick them up as you run past them. You drop down to 20% HP while you're running through enemies trying to get through them, pick up that 4-use medkit that you left in a specific location and heal yourself up fully. Then when you're on the way back and you're shutting doors behind you, pick up that ammo pack that you just dropped off for the medkit and refill your ammo as you're going back towards the scans. You need to use the entire level to your advantage. Don't just stay in the one zone when you're trying to do stuff like the alarm doors, blood doors, or error doors. Take advantage of everything. always have an escape plan. Make sure that whenever you're doing anything, even if it's just killing enemies silently, make sure you have an escape plan in case things go wrong. Don't trap yourself in a corner where you literally can't get away, because that will end in death no matter what. And this also applies to extraction scan, not just alarm doors and stuff like that. Make sure you have stuff planned out very well for the extraction scan. It's the final thing you have to do, so don't mess up right at the end. If you have any mines left or any C-foam or any other tools, make sure you're using them. If you have a turret capped out at 100% and you have a 5-use tool refill, bring that thing with you. That way you can just keep refilling that turret as you're on extraction scan. Or if you have C-foam, just keep spraying it everywhere, just freezing enemies and killing them with ammo. You have a 5-use ammo pack or health kit, bring that with you. My opinion is it's always more important to carry health on you, because I find it's much easier to drop to 0% HP than to go through 100% ammo on both of your guns. But just try to be strategic and run through levels and prevent enemies from catching up to you and killing you faster than you want them to. Wow. So if I can master all of that, I can solo any GTFO level?
No, not exactly.
But you said that I would be...
No. You're jumping the gun there past me. The thing is, GTFO isn't designed to be soloed. The developers made it that way on purpose. No matter how good you are at the game, soloing a level, especially the C tier or lower ones, will never be an easy thing. Even the A tier levels can be quite the challenge depending on room layouts and alarm doors.
So is there any point in even trying to solo levels then? It doesn't even sound possible for the common player, and it just sounds like a huge headache.
Well, of course, there's reasons to do it. If you're looking for a challenge, what better than attempting to solo a level? Even if you can't beat it, making it most of the way through is an achievement in itself. Soloing GTFO shouldn't be seen as an excuse to not play with other people, but rather a way to push yourself even further and practice your skills.
Oh, so you're saying that it would be better to socialize with people on the GTFO Discord and get involved with the community. Then when I've learned the levels and gotten some experience under my belt, I could try to solo levels to expand my skills and test myself.
Exactly! So, if you want to become part of the GTFO community, then click the link down in the description to join the GTFO Discord and make some new friends. And if you want to become part of my community, then consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that bell so you get notified whenever I post a new video. If you enjoy GTFO content, whether it be guides, playthroughs, lore, challenges, and more, then this is the channel for you.
Wow. I think I'll go do that myself right now. Thanks, future me.
And with that, my job here is done. So until next time, stay safe, enjoy life, and keep GTFOing.